Hi everyone, this is Chris Ashley. It's really great to be back with you. For those of you who have never followed my channel before, I teach all about how your thoughts create your reality and how simply shifting your mind can change the world you see around you. So today I'm going to talk about illness. So the beliefs that you have about yourself and the world and the thoughts that you think create the reality you live in. They quite literally shape the world you see around you, including the circumstances you find yourself in, the relationships you have with other people, your health, your success in your career, and so much more. And by changing your mind and adopting a new mindset and new beliefs and new thoughts, you can completely transform all of these circumstances and the world at large around you. Now, I wanted to start out by making that statement because it sets the context and the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. Now, this is proven true time and time again throughout my life, and I believe it so deeply in my core. But I didn't used to think this way. I was an incredibly shy and insecure kid. I was super scrawny and got made fun of for my body all the time. And this impacted me so much that I didn't wear shorts for the better part of a decade. And I used to hide my body that I hated under really baggy clothing. I had crippling social anxiety, but I was also angry at the world. So when I was 12 years old, I went through trauma that severely impacted my life for a great many years afterwards. After surviving 4 years of sexual abuse at the hands of a family member, that truth, what had happened, got out to my large extended family. And I had a huge Italian family, right? Everyone was really tight-knit. Everyone was loud in each other's business. It's kind of like Big Fat Greek Wedding, but the Italian version. We even sang anytime we were around each other. Well, when they found out what had happened to me, the family completely split down the middle. So family members whom I had previously been really close with told me that they no longer loved me and I wasn't their family anymore. They left me voicemails, they wrote me letters, and I was just a young teenager. So I wasn't permitted to see two of my cousins anymore who had been my best friends. You know, one day we were inseparable and the next day they were like ghosts. And I have no idea to this day, I don't even know how many years later, decades later, I have no idea what they were told about what happened. I have no idea what their thoughts were. I have no idea at all. So the impact that had on me, I was left with PTSD. I had a horrible self-image. I had lots of negative emotions like guilt and anger that I didn't know how to cope with at the time. I didn't have the tools. And I had a lot of self-harming behaviors as well. I turned to drugs, I turned to cutting, I turned to anything to numb the pain that I was feeling. So for those of us who have gone through a spiritual awakening, we often describe it as a defining moment in our life, right? It's like a line has been drawn vertically through our timeline, clearly delineating two separate sides, right? Who we were before the awakening and then who we became after. Now, for me, that moment happened in 2002. So I was 17 years old, and a boy that I was dating casually at the time handed me a book that completely changed how I thought about the world. It changed my way of thinking, it changed my way of being, my way of understanding and moving through life. And as I turned the pages, I remember this so vividly. As I turned the pages, it hit me so hard that what was written inside it felt like the truth. And then like a sleeper agent, something inside of me woke up. So when I finished that book, I started reaching for more. I became insatiable. I had this intense hunger for even more knowledge. And I started devouring every metaphysical, spiritual, new age, and personal development book I could get my hands on. I watched documentaries, I attended seminars, workshops, and retreats. I just completely absorbed myself in this. I became obsessed. And then I dove in headfirst to all of the teachings I could find, right? I put them into practice in my own life. And I became obsessed with metaphysics, quantum physics, reincarnation, meditation, yoga, the law of attraction, the ancient astronaut theory. I had read every single author that was on Ancient Aliens years before Ancient Aliens came out. What else? Sacred geometry, biohacking, functional medicine, all these different healing modalities. I was obsessed. And it's like I couldn't get enough, right? Every book was like a new door opening in this unending hallway. You know, I wanted more. I needed more. I was totally and completely hooked. And my life really became one big quest to learn, grow, heal, and expand every aspect of myself. It became my life's mission, this purpose that drove me onward, right? It was like the fuel behind me. But as I began to get better, as I began to change my mind, which is the name of my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. As I began to change my mind and get better, my mother began to get worse. Her family had been ripped down the seams. And she started to get physically sick. She was presenting with all these illnesses. And they were both serious illnesses, and they were also these strange afflictions that we had never heard of before, and even doctors could barely explain. So the doctors started giving her pills, and then they started giving her other pills for the side effects of those pills. And they were kind of just throwing everything at the wall and hoping that something would stick, that something would work, because they didn't really know what they were treating. So how'd that affect my mother? Well, she slept a lot. At the height of it, she was on a fentanyl patch. If you know what fentanyl is, it's pretty famous these days. It's causing some terrible ODs of heroin, right? People are lacing heroin with it. So she was on a fentanyl patch. She was taking about 11 different pills every day on top of that, included Dilaudid, which is a hard narcotic too. She was sleeping for all but a few hours of daylight. She fell down all the time. She nodded off at the dinner table. She forgot conversations that we'd had the day prior. And this lasted over 10 years while I lived with unbelievable guilt that I had destroyed my family and broken my mother. So in the end, it was my mother who inadvertently became my biggest teacher. So for every step that she took deeper into depression and illness, I climbed hand over hand in the other direction out of the proverbial tunnel. And that is because I saw firsthand what happens to a human body and spirit when they go down that path. And then I saw what was happening to my own body and spirit as I decided to change my mind about life and about the nature of reality. And at that moment, I made a promise to myself that I would do everything I could to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every kind of way. And that I would always prioritize my health in those categories. So to this day, in my free time, you'll still find me reading every book. You'll still find me trying every modality and attending every workshop that I possibly can, right? I believe that learning and growth should never be over. And I absolutely love finding things that just blow my mind wide open and just send my thoughts reeling into all these places that I never before knew existed. I love learning. And I love trying new exercise programs, new healing modalities, and I just have this drive to keep improving even farther. So personal growth and development is such an important aspect of life. You know, if we're not constantly growing and striving to learn new things, then we become stagnant, we become bored, we lose passion, we lose purpose. And we're here to grow as human beings. That's part of the reason that we are on this planet Earth. So it is embedded in our DNA, right? Just like how plants grow towards the sunlight, humans have this need to grow too. Now, my mother's story is not unique. So many people out there have accepted that illness is our natural state and that wellness is difficult to achieve. They allow their thoughts and emotions to take wild control over their life, right? They don't take the time to heal emotionally. They don't take the time to listen to their body, and they don't question why it is that they're sick in the first place. Most of them just kind of listen to the doctors and they treat the symptoms, right? That's what modern Western medicine does. It treats the symptoms, not the root cause, which is why I love functional medicine too. So over the years, I've learned that anytime I have an illness, the first thing that I need to do is question my emotional state. So up until 2017, this is another story for you. So up until 2017, I was working in the bustling tech industry in the Bay Area of California. And I was climbing the ladder in the marketing world. And I had been head of marketing at a small startup for years, and I loved my job. I loved my coworkers. It was a blast. But then that company sadly lost its funding and it closed its doors. And I was totally devastated. But then I found another job, as we do, right? This time as head of digital marketing at a larger startup that was well-funded. And the commute was great, right? It was closer to my house. It was 15 minutes away. It was in the Jack London neighborhood of Oakland. And if you're familiar with the Bay around Oakland, there's these iconic Oakland cranes that George Lucas used as inspiration for the AT-AT walkers in Star Wars. So I could see those. I could just leave the office and take a little stroll along the water. It was beautiful. And I had this great 6-figure paycheck. So on paper, everything was looking great, right? But inside, I was reeling. I was screaming. I started having panic attacks every single night, but I had no idea what they were from. Finally, other physical issues started to pop up, and my good friend, who's a functional medicine doctor, did a bunch of tests on me, and he found out that I had Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune system where your immune system attacks your thyroid gland. So during that time, I had also decided to take yoga teacher training. I love yoga. So during the week, I would go to my job, and then I spent every Friday evening, all day Saturday, all day Sunday at yoga teacher training. And I remember from the moment I walked into TT that first night, I felt at home. I had that feeling, right? Like I was right where I was supposed to be, where I belonged. And I was surrounded by like-minded people, and we were learning about pranayama and chakras and trying all types of yoga and meditation, and everyone was open and vulnerable and was doing the hard inner work, and I could talk about all the things I love to talk about. And it was really beautiful. But then the dreamy weekend would end, and I would be back at work on Monday, and I'd be having panic attacks again. And the next weekend, I would kind of just be this cycle. Like I would wait till the next weekend to roll around. And in the meantime, I would be miserable and I'd be stressing the fuck out, right? So when the Hashimoto's disease diagnosis came, it kind of just clicked, right? I knew it was a sign that I wasn't where I was meant to be, doing what I was meant to be doing. It kind of felt like the universe had been like poking me with the panic attacks. Like, hey you, like, hey, you're not on the path you're meant to be on. But I just ignored it, right? Because I didn't understand what was happening. So the universe took me by both shoulders and just shook me so hard until I couldn't ignore the message anymore. And I think this happens with a lot of us, right? Like sometimes the universe wants you to move in the direction that you're meant to move in and discover the path that you're meant to discover. And if you're not moving that direction, it will make things so uncomfortable and painful on your current trajectory that you have no choice but to move. So how many people can relate to that? So later on, I went through, this is another example of illness showing up as a message. So later on, I went through one of the most traumatic things I went through in my life when members of a community that I was part of started spreading lies about me on social media. So the people who posted about me created this invisible filter that distorted everything I had said and done and then flipped it to fit this narrative that they were telling. Friends who knew what those people were saying was untrue did not stand up for me. And then other people who had told me how much I had changed their life and how grateful they were for me literally just months earlier, weeks earlier in some cases, were now liking these posts and resharing these posts that were libeling me. And essentially all these people were rewriting their experience. And it was one of the strangest things I've ever watched unfold. It was truly like witnessing a live psychology experiment. And the whole thing was really traumatic. I felt publicly humiliated and attacked, but I also felt silenced, right? Because they had disabled comments so that I couldn't defend myself, and people were just dogpiling, right? It was like this bandwagon effect. People who had never even met me before were helping spread these lies by resharing the posts. And it was infuriating and it was frustrating, and I felt unsafe. Like I feared for my own safety and for my family's safety. You know, I didn't know how stable some of these people were. And for a while, the whole experience completely robbed me of my joy, stripped me of my confidence, and really destroyed my trust in other people. I was angry, I was traumatized, and I didn't know whom to trust. I just wanted to get away from everyone. And my adrenals were in fatigue from all of this stress, and that sent me into a Hashimoto's flare-up, and from that, I started rapidly gaining weight. So I was in this really, really dark place. Now, if you know anything about chakras, then you know that the throat chakra is associated with the ability to speak your truth, right? And of course, the thyroid gland is that little butterfly-shaped gland that sits right at the front of your neck. So I believe my thyroid was so effective because I had been silenced, right? I couldn't speak my truth. The job that I had been working at during that time, I also felt silenced in. So the trouble with my thyroid had already started brewing underneath the surface. And then that happened and it just kicked it into overdrive. So in addition to the weight gain being caused by Hashimoto's flare-up, I realized eventually that it was also this unconscious attempt to insulate myself, literally insulate myself from the attacks. And once I did end up healing emotionally, the weight quickly melted off with no effort on my part. It just was gone because I didn't need that padding, that layer around me anymore to keep me safe from these attacks. And then last example that I'll give you from my own life, I used to get these really bad tension headaches. They started when I was working in the tech industry startup. And I thought that it was because I sat at a computer all day. And they were so debilitating. I would get them several times each month, and they would last for around 5 days at a time. And literally nothing would make them go away. I would get a chiropractic adjustment like 3 times a week. I would get acupuncture every week. I would go do Egoscue, which is this amazing type of physical therapy for pain. I would take Advil or Tylenol, I would use ice, I would use heat. And all of those things on an ongoing basis would kind of sort of dull the pain enough to get me to a place where I could like kind of sort of function. Like honestly, it was awful. And all these various practitioners that I was going to, because I was going to all these people trying to get help, they were telling me that it was likely caused by clenching my jaw, which I would do sometimes throughout the day without even realizing it. And this went on for about 7 years. So when I ended up leaving the tech industry to become a yoga teacher, the headaches improved, but they didn't totally go away. So my theory of sitting at a computer all day didn't fit, right? So in my mind, I switched it to, it's anytime I'm looking at my phone for too long, right? It must be this ergonomic thing. Or anytime I clench my jaw for too long. And I kept thinking it was from these things. And it wasn't until I had a QHHT session, which is Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis, and the practitioner asked my higher self while I was under hypnosis what was causing my headaches, that I got a real answer. And the answer I received was that they were caused by getting too wrapped up in the emotions of this planet and the human experience. And I was told by my higher self under hypnosis that I needed to stop letting people and things get to me and focus more instead on my mission on this planet. And I remember the practitioner being like, I'm hearing like it's almost like there's so much emotion built up that there's pressure inside your head. And I was like, yeah, that kind of fits, you know? And to me, that really translated into stress, right? And I started thinking about when the headaches started. And they started at this specific time, and within a month or two, Shane and I had gotten married. We had bought and moved into a new house, and we had both started new jobs. And these had all been really, really positive things, but it had been a really stressful time in our lives, right? There was a lot going on. And then the next several jobs that I had were really high stress. So I had started to believe that the headaches were caused by sitting at my computer, looking at my phone for long periods of time. So anytime I did those things, a headache would show up, right? I would manifest a headache. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this was just such an aha moment where I realized that I was causing them. So since then, I've started to pay attention to whenever headaches do surface, and they're always completely out of the blue. Seemingly out of the blue, that is. So whenever I feel one coming on, I just make an effort to relax my shoulders. I relax the muscles in my face. I take a few deep breaths. I notice what emotions I'm feeling, what thoughts I'm thinking, and what's going on in the rest of my body. So sometimes I had just spent a lot of time on my phone, and I started thinking that old paradigm that I'm going to give myself a headache. Other times I'm feeling stress or frustration or anger or worry, and it's causing tension of some kind in my body. Like oftentimes I feel my thighs, my glutes, and my hips like clench up. And in a way, it almost forms this barrier where it keeps this emotion locked inside me, and then it creates all this pressure in my head, and that's where I end up feeling it. So I focus on really feeling all of these emotions and releasing them. And since I've started doing this, every single time I've been able to successfully stave off a headache. Now these used to last 5 days, and now I can just get rid of them. It's completely changed the quality of my life. I mean, that's an understatement that it's changed the quality of my life. So this is all to say the only person who can really cure you is you. You create your own circumstances. Since you chose them, you can change your mind and unchoose them too. Decide that healing is more appealing than illness. And rather than focus on your illness, focus on visualizing and feeling a life of health and vitality. Be that person who has a great attitude no matter what life throws their way. And this isn't spiritual bypassing. It's not denying that something's going on, but it's choosing to focus on a positive rather than a negative. Because what you believe will cure you is what will cure you. But you have to make up your mind that you want to heal, right? You have to have the intention of healing. So if you believe Western medicine is what will help you and cure you, then you're much more likely to heal after you take a pill or undergo surgery. If you believe a vegan diet can cure you, then it can. If you believe Chinese medicine will cure you, then it will. But you don't really need anything outside of you, right? It's your belief system that allows that to happen. That's why the placebo effect is so powerful, right? Your body is responding to your thoughts and your beliefs. So I hope these little personal stories from my life kind of opened your mind and made you think, there's some things that have happened in my life or some things I'm going through that maybe I'll just shift my thinking around. And yeah, there's some really great resources out there. I know Julia Cannon has a great book called Soul Speak about how different parts of your body give you different messages. Like if you have pain in your feet or ankles, you're not moving in your desired direction. Or if you have, swelling, you're not letting your emotions flow freely or letting them go, things like that. But you have everything you need. Again, you have your own intuition. And that's why I've made a video about this before, but you can still be spiritual and get Western medicine. You can still be spiritual and undergo chemo. You can still be spiritual and get eye surgery, right? It's your beliefs, and all of it's okay, right? All of it's okay. I think there's a lot of judgment that happens sometimes in the spiritual community, but we're living in this illusion, right? We're living in this simulation. And anything kind of goes here, right? You are the director of your own story. So my name is Chris Ashley. I have a book that just became available for pre-order. It's called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And I talk about all this and so much more. The link is in my bio. I hope you go check it out, go pre-order it. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Nobles, it's in paperback, audio, ebook, so you got some choices. And head over to changeyourmindtochangeyourreality.com to purchase it. And let's see, follow me on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. I'm at Change Your Mind with Chris. I have a podcast that you're listening to right now, so you know that. I'm also Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley on Facebook. Thank you so much. I hope you have a beautiful day.